I think it's never a fun day. I think it's something that is inevitably around the corner. But, when you're around these guys, these 90 guys, and right after, you've spent the time building and developing relationships, and then you end up having to cut it down to 53. And fortunately, a good amount of those guys that you end up letting go are part of the practice squad. But it's never a fun thing. And, what I've always learned from the great coaches or people that have kind of been through it is all you can do is be clear, open, and honest and appreciative of what these guys have done, even if it doesn't work out. And that's why, for us, Lindsay, the thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is if it doesn't work out with the Rams, we're helping these guys put good stuff on tape, trying to help put them in positions. And I think that's where, in a lot of instances, some of the guys that maybe have already established themselves as guys we're counting on, it does help because you get a chance to play more and compete a little bit more in some of these preseason games than maybe you would at some of the other clubs.
I think last year your first team defense played a little bit in this game.
They did. Yeah, they played about that one series. We got the turnover, and then they were out of there.
Is that off the table?
Yep. Yeah, that'll be off. That'll be off. There was the reason that we did that last year, Vinny, and really we kind of fell into it because we were planning on playing our offense last year, if you guys remember, but we had some injuries up front, and then it kind of had that snowball effect where, as a result of having some guys out, and then especially when we were playing the Houston Texans, and, they were going to play Clowney and Watt and some of those guys, and we didn't feel like that was going to be the smartest approach for us. We had some new people on defense that we were counting on, the two new corners. We had Sue inside and some different continuity, Corey starting at the Mike linebacker spot. So there was a lot of changes that we had that we felt like it was necessary, and then real quickly you see those guys, you said, all right, those few plays were enough. So not that we have it figured out by any stretch, but that's just the approach that we think is best for us. And we feel good about having gotten a chance to have those 4 practice opportunities against the Chargers and the Raiders combined. And then we'll get a chance to have some inter-squad scrimmages over the next week and a half or so.
Injuries and stuff like that aside, the fact that it's a 16-game season, which is a long season, does that play into it in terms of, like, even if you're a little rusty in this area, you can play your way into the region?
Yeah, I think you'd like to think that. I think the main part about it, Vinny, is that, it's not something, and you kind of continue to learn as you go, and that's really just what we felt like has kind of organically taken place. It's not to say that there's not an appreciation for what the preseason entails and playing real football. I think there is a lot of merit to that. But when you look at some of the continuity now that we have on both sides of the ball coming back, and you say, okay, if something were to happen, is it really worth that risk in our mind? And we just felt like that answer is no. And that's the approach that we're taking. I totally understand, if people don't agree with that. But, we always make decisions that we feel like are in the best interest of our team, and that's just really for this unit. Now, does that mean that we'll always be able to have that luxury? I think if you have different amount of continuity and returning players, then the narrative and the conversation we're having is a little bit different. Yeah, it went really well. He's still going to be out for, in a long period of time. As far as what that means for him, IR, things of that nature, we haven't gone down that road, but everything went well. And that's a unfortunate thing that's happened to a great player and a guy that's handled himself in the right way. But if there's anybody that is going to handle it the right way in terms of attacking the rehab, like we talk about letting these setbacks be setups for comebacks, it's going to be Micah Kaiser. And hate it for him, but looking forward to that time when we get him back, and I know he's going to attack this process the right way.
Sean, what went into the design on the backs of a lot of T-shirts and then that logo that's right at the bottom?
Say that again?
The new design that you have.
Oh, the compass? Yeah. You know what? I think, as a coaching staff and, you're always trying to just learn a little bit more and figure out different ways to really, give messages, but you in essence are saying the same things. And I think we felt like as a coaching staff and then with some of the feedback from our players, a compass is something that's relevant for us. Always use the core values and characteristics that we want to operate with on a daily basis to kind of help us stay the course. Inevitably, there's a lot of different distractions, different adversities, staying humble in some of the success that we've been fortunate enough to have. But I think this really just kind of represents, hey, how do we stay the course through a 16-game season? Hopefully you give yourself a chance to play after that. And a compass is kind of something that we felt like was relevant, especially coming off a good season, but making sure that we understand we got to produce in the present, be where our feet are planted, and what we did last year won't do anything for us this year, but it is something we can draw on as long as we learn from it, both the good and the bad. So there's your reason.
How much time did you spend, just kind of
It's something that, none of these are really my original ideas. These are all things that, as a coaching staff, and then whether it be reading books or acquiring different insight on very similar topics from a variety of things that, I happen to enjoy. It's kind of a collaboration of things. I saw the compass and kind of got the idea about that from, Kevin Eastman wrote a book, The Best, Why the Best Are the Best. And he had something in there and I felt like it was relevant and resonated with our football team. And then you say, okay, how can we put that in Rams language and some of the things that we value based on what our players and our coaches, deem important. It does look like that. Don't get me in trouble with that, Yeah, I think it's the same thing you've probably noticed, Serena. He's just made plays. There's certain guys that you can't always appreciate guys in some of these practice settings, but when you get out there and you're playing real football where it's tackle and there's a real crowd in the stands and the lights come on, certain guys just have a good way about themselves where no moment is too big. And I would say, what he's shown is he's a baller and a guy that, whether it be doing different things and being able to adjust on the fly for Bones in a variety of spots with whatever phase that we're in, offensively, whether it's blocking at the point of attack, making big catches, having a feel for finding a soft spot off schedule with Brandon Allen the other day, running after the catch on a screen. He's just done a really nice job. And I think more than anything, you just kind of feel his presence as a player in these first two preseason games. And he's a guy that been very encouraged with. I think Eric Yarber and Liam Combs, our receiver coaches, have done an outstanding job really developing that group as a whole. But Simba is certainly somebody that's stepped up, made his presence known, and you can't help but see what a good job he's done in these first couple games.
Seems like each of the last 2 weeks, it's been a different linebacker, especially among the younger guys who have really stepped up and made some plays. How difficult of a decision is that going to be for you as you get closer to figuring out what that 53-man roster looks like because of the way you play?
Yeah, it will. And those are good things. The goal is for these guys to make our decisions difficult because there's so many people that you feel like are NFL caliber players that are deserving of winning a shot to be on that 53. So those are good problems. Again, I think, these guys have done an outstanding job, and you can't say enough about what our coaches have done in terms of developing these guys, whether it be Chris Shule and those outside linebackers, Eric Henderson and Thad Bogardus with those inside players. And then, you look at Joe Barry with the inside linebackers, what he's done, what he means to us as an assistant head coach, but then also a great defensive coach. I think it's a big reason why you see these guys like Dakota. Bryce steps up in a big way last week. You look at Natrez being able to play inside linebacker when he started here, then being able to transition to the outside where you feel him getting Oboe back. So there's been a lot of positives and definitely going to be some difficult decisions, but those are champagne problems.
Sean, is there any trouble that you can't evaluate in terms of Jared by not, or do you get everything you need from?
No, I definitely would never say that. I think it's the risk reward. There's nothing like being able to evaluate a quarterback, seeing a live rush when he can actually get tackled. There's no way you can ever mimic and emulate that until you get into a real game setting. I think we try to create as much stress as possible in some of those more controlled environments and atmospheres, but there's really, that is the most difficult thing in terms of the translating of when you see a real pass rush, because that's really what separates it. There's an element of when all right, I'm protected, I can't truly get hit. And I think he's done an outstanding job of, we always talk about, and I know Shane and Zach are echoing the same thing, let's move, let's play within the rhythm and timing of the play, let's legitimately play these out as if you could get tackled. But there's a certain thing, and I think he would be able to, articulate it a little bit better than me, having been in the line of fire. But when you actually see a live rush, there's no way you can simulate that in practice unless you're letting guys tackle them.
And looking around the league, when certain situations come up with other teams, for example, the Antonio Brown situation in Oakland, do you kind of go through your mind, how would I handle that situation if I had a player with that particular issue?
Yeah, I think you always try to use the other examples that you have as a chance to say, all right, what would the way that we would handle it be? And having a plan in place. And I think everything goes back to communication and a mutual respect that exists and everybody being on the same page. But what I respect about, that specific situation, you see Coach Gruden, he's got his players' backs. And that's what we want to make sure our guys understand here. And that's very important to us. But absolutely, the things that go on outside of our organization are great learning ops for us. And I definitely definitely look at those things as a chance to really ask yourself, how would you handle it? And then some of the situations not exclusive to that make you so appreciative of the guys and the communication that we'd like to be able to have here.
The partnership between Jay-Z and the NFL, there's been some conversation around that. Have you guys sat down and had conversations about social issues with the players, and talk about stuff other than X's and O's while you're out here?
I think the biggest thing that we always emphasize is the development of real relationships from a foundational aspect. And I think that naturally and organically occurs where you can have those authentic and genuine conversations. I'd like to think that there's an open platform where if a guy feels a certain kind of way or, has a problem with the way that we want to be able to operate organizationally, I'm not worried about who's right. I'm worried about what's right. And I always want to be somebody that's learning and listening. And then I think that gives you the best chance to be able to lead after that. But, to say that, I think it's more about let's develop the relationships and have a clear-cut understanding of where guys are coming from, why they might have a certain perspective or, value certain things. And fortunately for us, those have been things where I think we're always on the same page and you're continuing to learn every single day. All right. Thanks, guys.